Welcome to the Say It Sister podcast, the space where women's voices rise, truth takes centre stage, and silence is never an option. We are Lucy Barkers and Karen Harris-Kelly, founders of Wise Women Lead and the Say It Sister podcast, and every Friday we drop another episode, a conversation about what's on our mind, womanhood, and often just trying to make sense of what's going on in this world when we're constantly in what the F moments. And today is no different. There are so many WTF moments happening every day. We're tackling the story that has basically taken over our hearts and our minds, and that is the Epstein files. For us, this is absolute epitome of the worst atrocities of patriarchy. A system that uses men, women, children, and the planet as just mere objects, a means to an end, and places power and control at the centre of all its interactions and secrets. I am both lost for words and swirling conversations in my head all at once. But in those moments of clarity, we see that the patriarchal system, for its worst, driven by power, sex and money, and using women and children for its own satisfaction, and exerting power over all of us. We also see that the behaviours of the men in power, the ones where, there's been conspiracy theories around for years about these, but now they're not conspiracy, they're truth. Whether it's from Andrew to Mandelson, Elon Musk, Gates, Trump, Clinton, you name it. Even the Dalai Lama and Richard Branson have been named, although no evidence has come against them. But it's all now in the public domain, and I know you're feeling it too, Karen.
I am, and as you started talking, I hiccuped, and it's like my whole system is just like in a state of distress. The hiccups, and then I'm now a bit goosebumpy. So I feel like there's a lot shifting through, even at the beginning of this conversation. I feel like there's just this call for justice that is like worldwide, and I'm really shocked that there is only one person in jail, and that person is a woman, Giselle Maxwell. I'm like, how, whilst she does deserve to be in jail for sure, why is she the only one? I see it's a moment of fuel for women to come together, for our male allies to stand with us and say, we have to change. No, it's not just a narrative. It's not just a story. This is reality. This actually happened. And this is the moment to say, no, enough. This is no longer allowed to happen. And we know these things have been going on since time began probably, but it's no longer on our watch, not in the world that we live in when we have awareness of what's happening. Because at the heart of all this is this evil web, and it's using children. And that burns all of us. And it's creating a legacy of pain and shame, I want to say, because the shame is totally on them. Yet shame, as we know, lives on in all of us, and we carry that. And it's so incredibly toxic, it makes me feel slightly sick. So I feel outraged. I'm also very sad, and I feel like the systems are failing us. And I've been getting the most incredible responses over social media. The responses to my post, which was all about the victims on Instagram, has really overwhelmed me. And I've had so many comments, and I started off responding, and now I can't respond anymore because it's just too much. And I'm saddened that it takes something like this for us to actually show up. And actually, push for change. But unfortunately, that's the way the world is. And at least we are showing up. And it's this anger, this unification. And it's also, there's a lot of courage because people are saying, they're there, they're showing up, and they're speaking their truths. We also had some trolling, but the comments were so unbelievably ridiculous. I didn't respond. A couple of women responded. They didn't even go in, didn't feel it. I just thought, I don't care what you think. That's the first for me, so I'm celebrating that. And all of this has shook us, and it's struck a chord. So let's dig in. Let's go a little bit deeper.
Oh, I just wanted to point out one thing before we go deeper, and it probably layers onto what we're going to chat about. This morning I turned on the news, and Ghislaine Maxwell has appeared in front of I don't know, is it in the UK, it'd be the Parliamentary Committee, and on each and every question, she chose to no comment, take the First Amendment and say silent. And it just was really poignant. I have no sympathy or empathy for her whatsoever.
No.
But I thought she is using the only thing that she's actually got for self-preservation, which is her voice. And she has chosen to stay silent to protect herself, because she knows that she is just one cog in a very huge machine. And it's just so frustrating that, one woman like Virginia Giuffre was the one who exposed this first and foremost, and then there's another woman sat on the other side who is protecting. Um, and it just made me really sad. But the one thing that women do have that can make a change is using our voices together. And so I just thought it was a poignant moment because it was like fresh news this morning that she was back in the news. But yes, I'm ready to dig. Over to you.
Let's go into the victims because, when I was looking at what was going on, I was like, I do need to say something. This is a matter of really close to my own heart. But I do not want to post those pictures of like Andrew, like with her in the background with the awful white top and the brown tan. It was like, I don't want to be posting that because that for me makes me feel so physically sick. Now, when I look at the victims, that also makes me feel sick, but at least we're talking about what happened to them. And so that was really important for me.
And seeing the women today as
Yeah.
survivors, not in the images while they were being abused or victimized, but actually today as the women who, yes, they are sad and they have real pain, but they are standing together, which gives them real strength. So, yeah, I don't want to see those other images either.
No, and also the support and some of the comments that were put on there. I mean, I can't remember how many thousands of comments are on there now. I was like, the love that was coming through, like it brings tears to my eyes. And we had like 151,000. It's been viewed that many times, but the comments were like, it was like they were speaking to these women as their own family, and I was like, oh my God, like they're actually standing for something that we all know. We all, like, if you're a woman, you know about sexual assault. It's part of our lives. We've grown up with it, knowing about it. Obviously, there's different levels of it, but I really, really now feel that this is so incredibly mainstream. It's not 1 in 3 in the UK. It's not 1 in 4. If you put in America, it's so much more than that because most women don't report. So we know this stuff, and it sits inside us, and that makes me feel deeply sad. But I'm also, like, it was just humbling and heartwarming for me. I didn't expect to get such a huge response. I didn't do it actually for that. I did it because I was like, I can't stay silent. I have to show something for these beautiful, beautiful women. So that was my intention, and then the rest of it is kind of rippled. But it's something about us honouring the victims without sensationalising their pain. For me, it's like that's really about sending them lots of love and showing their faces, and where we can, using their names. The other story that came out was around the supermodel Karen Mulder, who ended up, going to she was basically institutionalized,
Sectioned. Yeah.
which, because she told the truth. And how many times has that happened, in the past? It's like that was the place where women were sent to when they started to say, I've had enough of that, I'm not accepting that, when they started to show their anger. That is systemic. And so I remember her from like growing up and seeing her and her beauty on the catwalk. And I just think, I cannot believe that there's so much when you dig into it, that there's so much that we still don't know.
But do you know what? I posted, but then I noticed so many other women were posting, please tell me she's okay now. Or does anybody know, is she okay? Because obviously we can look back at, oh God, that was awful. But also it's when the sisterhood comes through and says, but what about now? Is she getting the support that she needs?
Yeah.
And nobody's able to answer the question, but it's just that feeling of wherever you are, we're with you, we care, we support you. And I was incredibly touched and moved by how many other people came out and said that. It was almost like sending her a healing message of we still care.
Oh, I know. And like some of the things were like, sweet girls. And I'm getting really emotional over here because when you see them as women, you forget, in a way, even though they had their pictures, these were young girls who were sent into the lion's den. And and the trafficking that happens, and this is still going on in the world, you know, and I have a big thing around disappearing children and people. Like, it's something that really disturbs me. So again, it sort of, it brings up so much. Let's go into it from the place of this like dark triad, this sort of sex, money, power. You know, it's very hard to understand why people do these things. If, as women, generally speaking, I think it's very hard. Like, why would you do that? And especially to something that is so innocent. Yet at the center of all this is this power. This, like, if I've got the power, then I'm in control. I hold all the cards, and you do what I say. And it's like, I think that is the kind of at the heart of everything. Who's got the power? I need the power. You know, and it's just preying on the vulnerable, and it's about inflating that unhealthy ego, that, you know, idea of what we all want to do is feel safe.
Yeah.
And I feel like often there are these, you know, like people will come in and they will take that authority seat, and people think, well, they're in authority, therefore I need to feel safe, so therefore I will trust that person. Actually, sometimes it's the worst thing we could do.
So I think it's almost impossible to know what life was like before the patriarchy, because it's what, been 10, 12,000 years. But there was a life before then. So when we start thinking about the sex, money, power, or the dark triad, um, it's almost impossible to separate yourself from it, because we don't know another way. And so, as a really small example, if anybody listening has ever been promoted, or given a position of authority, so your rank and privilege has increased. And that might be that when you got married, or you got a promotion at work, or you maybe came into some money, got a pay rise, suddenly you feel different. You might feel more confident. You might feel like you have power over others, as people get to call you, whether it's Mrs. or Doctor or whatever the thing is. Instinctively, our ego grows. So that's really the essence of it. But then there is a choice about how you use that power, that money, that influence. And that's where, unfortunately, we are all conditioned to, in this patriarchal world, to honor those who are either the sexiest, the most beautiful. They have no other virtues other than their appearance or how they use their assets, or they have that. You know, we always say, like, growing up, we all liked a bad boy because there was something about being chosen by him, and that's the sex. It's that control that we have. And again, it's with that power. We all are conditioned from a young age to respect our elders or our more seniors. Don't question. And I particularly had this from my boomer parents. Like, well, I had my one side of the family he's really against authority and power because he had bad experiences growing up. And then I've got my other side, my mum, who, not like hugely practicing, but she had all of those things that you've got to be respectful of your elders and always be polite to the teacher and respect for your doctor and always assume that it's male. So there was this conditioning in me that, and the same as all of us, that we should respect anybody who has got some rank, privilege, or power. And then if somebody turns up driving a smart car or is wearing the right clothes or gets a promotion, that money aspect, automatically we're told that we should respect them, or they're kind of special. So it's just knowing that actually in our society we are there to respect people with sex, money, power, even if they're absolute bastards, excuse my French, but that's the
Yeah.
reality. But then when you get them all together and they try and hold or grow their status, then they start getting into all of these like narcissistic and Machiavellian behaviors, and it others them, so they feel like they're the elite, and all the rest of us, whether they're children, the poor, people of other colors, genders, sexual orientations, well, they're others. We are better than them, so they don't even see us as being on the same level as them. And that's how it gets then really sinister, that we then become tools or toys or just objects for them to play with. And
Yeah.
I think once you see it, you see why this circle, this web, has like gone across the world with men and women in society who are basically social climbers who are trying to protect their own status.
Mm.
Yeah,
I,
that's where my head's gone.
yeah, I know, and it's a good way of explaining it. I want to talk about like so something happened when I was 11. Went to a party with my best friend's older sisters, and so we went to this party, and there was a man there. He was there with his pregnant wife. Now I was 11. I reckon he was about 40. He was
I'm
giving,
already feeling a bit sick thinking, where's this going? Yeah.
yeah, um, he kept giving me orange juice. In the orange juice was vodka. So I'm 11 years old and I'm starting to feel a bit strange. So I don't know how much vodka he gave me, basically. I have no idea. But I went upstairs and I remember going upstairs and he was with his wife in this other room and he was like, I just remember his energy was almost like trying to get her to go to bed or something. Now I could see because the door was open and the bathroom was here. So I walked into the bathroom and I was thinking everything was spinning. Went to the toilet. When I opened the door, he was blocking the door
Oh,
and he went in to kiss me. Now, this is a big 40-year-old guy. I remember he had a bald head, like a patch. I mean,
yeah, I feel
just
sick.
disgusting. And so he was blocking the door. I couldn't go anywhere. And then, luckily for me, my best friend, who has always been such an intuitive person, even at 11, was like, something's not right. She came upstairs and she said to him, and I remember it. And I was really quite drunk, but I can remember this crystal clear. And she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, nothing. I'm just making sure she's okay." So we went. So she said she's absolutely fine. So he went back into where his wife was, who was pregnant, who was lying down, who was in the next room, who clearly knew something wasn't quite right. She must have known. She was sober. We went downstairs. I threw up all over the dining room, and I mean all over the place. So we left. We got a taxi back. I got deposited at my parents'. I was legless by that point because it was really hitting. And my mum and dad were like, "What happened?" And there was no follow up. There was no consequences. Now, I was just at a party with some other people, vulnerable, young, that should never have happened, but it did happen and it does happen. And, it's again that sort of like that guy in control. He's also already got the wife with the baby in the belly. Like, where's that going? Preying on someone who is innocent and spiking her, right? So, really, the police should have been called, if I'm being honest, to say this man spiked my child. Now, nothing would have happened, but it's that call in, isn't it? And I think this is the situation where I just think, and what that does is it places a seed inside where you go, like, who can I trust? Am I safe? Clearly, I wasn't safe in that situation, so perhaps that could happen again. At 11, it's not really something you want to be dealing with. And I think as I grew up, as women, we're like, well, if I don't use my sexuality and take control of my sexuality, then people are going to take control of it
Yeah.
anyway. So I may as well own the fact that I'm sensual and, I've got curves and I'm growing up. So that was kind of my story. Like, as I got older, I'm talking like a lot older. I was like, well, I'm going to own it now because clearly enough people are going to try and take it from me. So I'll own it anyway. And I became like
And
quite
when we
sexual and
were
sensual.
we were in the girl power, the third wave of feminism, the 90s and early noughties. So we were emboldened. We had other women also showing up using their sensuality and sexuality. Um, and so it wasn't abnormal to almost like own it
Yeah.
so that others couldn't take it. And so I do feel in a way quite privileged that I was able to grow up in that period, because every girl or every woman has got an experience not as extreme as yours, which is horrendous, but we've all been approached by that, whether it's that uncle or a friend of your parents, or being wolf whistled or hassled walking home from school. We've all had it. Um, and thankfully now it's being named as this is not okay. And um, I think like when it really brought it into its forefront in the UK was around the Rotherham grooming gang.
Mm.
And this is not about any ethnicity. This is actually about institutional power, sex, money, because actually the children that were involved in that were the most vulnerable. They were the ones who were living in the care system. They didn't have parents looking out for them, and they were preyed upon. But the worst travesty of it all was the people who were supposed to be looking after them, the counsellors, the social workers, the schools, the education, they all knew what was going on, but they actually chose to ignore the children. And again, this is them not rocking the boat. They don't want to rock their political position or their jobs or be under investigation. So they went into, again, looking after their own power and their own money situation, and actually then just throw these girls to the wolves. And we see it time and time again. And so, yes, Epstein has like put it on a global scale, but actually it's happening in our homes, in our local parties, our communities, in our cities. And actually it's the institutions that actually none of those people who turned a blind eye or stayed silent or didn't whistleblow, they've either retired with a nice healthy pension, or they got away scot-free. They're still in those roles today. And that is what makes me so mad and raging, because none of this is new, is it? We know this happens all the time. You've got stories, I've got stories, my daughters have got stories.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm just like, oh, we've got to use our voice, we've got to do things differently. And I am raging. I can feel it growing within me, because it's never going to stop unless we stop it.
I mean, these are conversations that I have at the school gates with loads of other mums who are like, don't, don't let them on this app. Don't, I mean, not that
Mm,
Kathleen has a phone, but it's very, very easy to track kids these days if they are, online. It's unbelievable to me. So and I had this actually in a business conversation. So these are the conversations that we are all having, and it isn't like, if I'm going to celebrate that, it's almost like they're not really pushed under the rug. You'll have people that want to talk about what's going on, the serious conversations such as like these crimes. And then you'll have people who just don't want to talk about it, who are like, I can't go anywhere near it because it's too disturbing, and actually I'm in survival. So my form of survival is to block it out and pretend it doesn't happen. And then you've got the ones who are like, I need to talk about this. Did you know? Did you know? And have you heard? And this is what was going on. So, we live in these two different separate worlds. And I think as women, as leaders, we need to be able to know like how to approach that and how to, fit into that, because I don't want to be making people talk about things that they don't want to talk about. Like, that's not my vibe. And at the same time, I don't want to stay quiet and silent on this issue, because clearly there's too many touch points. Even if there wasn't any touch point, it's just wrong on every single level. And I feel like when it comes to women and children and girls, it's almost like we've been so downgraded, but without consciously, like without us realizing it in some situations, we've been so downgraded that it's like so secondary. But if it was happening to men, and I know that men have also been trafficked and groomed, that's been coming out with the Abercrombie and Fitch, incidents that happened there. So this isn't just a woman thing. It's much bigger than that, but it's still got this sort of like downgrade situation that happens. And that is the thing that also needs to shift for me, because it's like, hold on a minute, we are human beings. We are wives, we are mothers, we are business leaders. Like, when did we become so unequal? And I think the answer to that is we always have been, at least
yeah.
since patriarchy came in, because women are there for men and for the purpose of men. I want to read something out as well. I'm like going for it today, because I just think you can't half say something. There's a reality with that. And I'm also very, very aware of, if you say too much sometimes, it can be very off-putting for people. So trying to sort of like hold the line of that, because I don't feel like we have to overshare everything. I think we can be very conscious in how we go around having conversations, is my point. I think that's really important. Otherwise people switch off and go, don't want to have that conversation. That's just too much for me. And they shut down. So this is an email that I received in 2017 after my sexual assault, from somebody that I knew very, very well. I I couldn't hold it in anymore. I'd kind of done 6 months of silence, and I just had to like let it rip. So I emailed this guy. This is what he sent back to me. I'm just going to say X thinks it's you that needs the help, as do I. We are actually insulted that you are trying to claim I tried to or had sex with you. That's just not true, and actually it's libelous. It doesn't even stack up. You must know that. I know you've had a tough year with your infertility problems, but that is no reason to suddenly start trying to bomb my family. We have children and I won't tolerate this. I think you are the one that needs help, and I would urge you to seek it ASAP. I think it's best to cease communication from here on out. Please don't contact me again and leave my family alone. And I kind of dug it out again and read it yesterday, and I was like, ugh. I mean, there's more to it than that, but that's kind of the subtraction, of somebody doing something so bad to you, and then when you call it out, the gaslighting, blaming infertility, like the story of the response, and that's what happens when someone calls something out.
And also, you're the crazy one. You need help.
Yeah. No, I would never make something like that up because quite clearly I have too much to lose. I was engaged at the time. It just like I had too much to lose and actually I did lose. I lost a lot, and I lost a lot of friends and stuff around it as well. So, for me it was like, and I was also extremely ill. So I ended up being tested for leukemia afterwards because my body just went into overdrive. It was awful. So, this isn't, for me, it's like, wow, but this is what we go through. This is the response often. It's like deny, 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 which is what we're seeing in the world. There's either no comment or there is a comment like that. And I think, so as I'm seeing this stuff happening, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get it.
Well, it's almost like there's a playbook, isn't there, that they are raised with, whether it's, how do I get out of being told off by the headmaster or getting into trouble with dad at home? Well, let's just deny. Let's blame the younger sibling, or it was the other kid at school who did it, and then they get away with it. And it's almost like they've learned how to just deny, deflect, blame, shame, but I'm okay. Because we see it all around the world with anybody who's in a position of any kind of power, authority, or has got something to lose. They play from this playbook. But the interesting thing that is happening now is that now the statement is, we believe her. And it may mainly be the women who are writing that statement. And there are some women who still think that they're just fame seekers or gold diggers. But actually, it is changing. And yesterday I was reading, so in my area, they have some people in the police force who are actively going out jogging. And they're wired up to a response unit. So every time that they are either catcalled, harassed, or whatever, attacked, they have got a response crew there and then it's either prosecute or re-educate. And I was like, I went into the comments because I'm like, oh, here come all the misogynists. Here come all the, what about men? And actually it wasn't. It was, I'm so glad you're doing this, or this is my story, or this is why we need this. Well done, police force, or we believe her. And I was like, wow, things are changing. So there's a bit of hope there. And it's like the messages you saw on your Instagram, the messages around this. Yeah, let's have a little bit of hope because things are changing.
It's interesting because the first comment I got was from my old boss, and he said, I'm ashamed to be a man. And I just put on it and I said the shame is on them, and then I sent him a message like the day after, and I said thank you so much for that message. I don't think men realise that when they support us and they believe us and they say, like, I don't want him to feel ashamed about something he hasn't done. It's not that, but when they show up for us, it means so much, and it has such
and show up publicly,
gravitas to it, and because. It's like, oh wow, and I know there's loads of amazing men out there. I talk about this all the time, so many brilliant men who are so supportive and so on side, and who I adore, who are like my sisters. It just happens that they're men, and And I'm so grateful for them, because otherwise I would be like scared to leave the house, I think. And the vast majority of people that I meet and see, you know, I see kindness and care.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take a lot, does it, to sort of, make us focus on the negative, because normally the crimes are so awful that it kind of takes away that beauty and that love and that um, companionship and the hope that we need to feel. So yeah, so I want to say, if there is any men out there listening to this, when you show up for us and you say something that is like poignant and supportive, my God, does that heal?
It really matters. Yeah. We
Yeah.
need allies. We absolutely need allies. To call out the behaviours of their friends or of their sons, of their own parents, work colleagues, but equally just to send us messages saying we stand with you, we support you. All of it matters. And I do feel like there is something shifting and it is changing. And I think that stance of we believe her, when you all of the stories that came out of Me Too, I mean, Me Too was just a phenomenal movement. So I think that was a spark, but it was also on the backdrop of the Jimmy Savile scandal investigation, where someone who had all of the sex power money was there operating in plain sight and fooled everybody. And then we saw the dramas and we heard, the real stories. And we're like, okay, this isn't make believe. This isn't a one-off. This is like large scale. And so many, Sarah Everard, and there's so many high-profile stories that actually, to say this doesn't happen or we believe him, it just doesn't sit right anymore. And so, yes, thank you to all of the victims who have had the courage to speak up, because you are part of this changing hearts and minds. Thank you for telling your stories, and to the journalists and the filmmakers who want to tell these stories, because again, it is changing hearts and it's changing minds. And thank you to the people brave enough to, like us. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to be able to come on and speak about this stuff and about our own personal stories, but we do it in service of our listeners, but also making the change. And also, it releases our shame, doesn't it, when we talk about our own personal
I
experiences?
think it is never going to get easy. When there's just a point, and I think for me, like there's so many deep breaths on the journey from 2017. It's like, take a deep breath, okay, and then we go. And then sometimes I just take a deep breath and I don't need to talk about this stuff all the time. It's just not like that. But when it is relevant and, like you say, of service, then I do. But I'm very, very, very conscious and very aware um, of the impact and how things might land. So it's not something, like I can do this on here with a podcast.
You don't just go to school and go, hey, I was raped once. How about you?
It's just
It's
not. It's not that,
context.
and I know that it has an impact on
Yeah.
the people around my family and things as well. So I'm really, really conscious, and the thing I do want to say for anyone who's like listening and goes, "Oh God, I've been through that and I'm not okay." It definitely gets easier, and the level of healing that I've done with it and work and like what it kind of uncovered in my life, and the level of it, and then going in off and doing that healing work, and just like layers and layers and layers and doing it all, and then now I can sit here and I'm balanced with it. Yeah, I can feel like the anger and the frustration still, it's still there, but I can it's so far, it's much further away from me. And I always knew, it's like when something happens to us, it's like, why did that happen then? Like, what was that? Like we go into the why, don't we? And we want to
Yeah.
understand why, and could we have prevented it? And was it our fault? What signals did we give off? La la la. Like you dissect things that happen to us that are traumatic sometimes. Doesn't really help with the healing. It's more of like trying to work it out as to, how
But
could that
also,
possible thing
none
happen?
of this was your fault.
I know. And then there's that process where you go, you know, that, and it's like, it's something that the brain does. That's just how we're wired. We're wired to survive. We're wired to sort of try and understand things that sometimes we'll never understand because it's far too complex. And we can lose energy there, but it's part of the process, and that's okay. And then to sort of like come out of that and just be very sort of, yes, it happened. And yes, it
Yeah.
changed me. And yes, it's made me who I am today. But it's also made me such a powerful individual, such a powerful woman. And there's something that I'm playing with this year around this soft power to be able to call things out and speak up, but to do it from such a grounded and balanced, and I'm going to say the word healed place.
Yeah.
There'll always be some things I'll need to work on behind the scenes, always. And I'm okay with that because that makes me human. But there's also this really evolved person in me, this strong woman who's like, I am scared of stuff, but I'm also not scared of things. It's a really weird sort of contrast that I hold. I am scared of the things happening to my daughter. That's where my fear goes. But when it comes to me, I'm a much more like,
And I think, well, it's that old phrase, and I probably won't get it right, but it's lead from the lesson, not from the pain.
yeah,
And I think that's what I hear from you, that the pain is more like a little ripple now rather than the raging volcano or the devastating. So the pain, it's distanced, but the lessons are really strong, and that's where the courage comes. Now we are going to have to bring this amazing conversation. It's helped me because I needed to be able to talk about what's been going on. And I hope it's helped you, Karen, and also the listeners at home. We will be doing a follow-up episode, which is about, well, what can we actually do? Because it can feel quite, you know, disempowering when it's just more and more news and you think we can't change this. So we will explore what we can do for ourselves, for our own families, and for the wider community in the world. So make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss that episode. Have you got any closing words before we sign off, Karen?
I think if there is this conversation inside you that needs to be had, find an outlet, find someone that you can talk to. There are so many helplines. But find a person, I know you sometimes say find your dog or your cat or whatever. Like, you can also speak to your pets, but definitely have the conversation, and don't sit there in silence with it swimming around inside you, because we can't heal if we don't take help. And part of that is the talking element, the talking therapy. We know this podcast has healed so many parts of ourselves. That's one of the reasons why we do the podcast, is to sort of come back together and have a conversation and hopefully help others. So just know that you're on a journey, and if you really, really want to make some changes, and that can be in your own relationship with yourself, you can make that happen. But it's like one step after the other is what I want to say. So find your person, call the number, reach out.
We're here for you. Text, message, email, you can find us on Wise Women Lead, or follow the hashtag Say It Sister. You will find us. We are available. But with love, we send out there to everybody. Until next time, goodbye.